much for this day. We thank you so much because you've given us life, you've given us breath, you've given us the activity of our limbs, our right minds. We are so grateful and so thankful. God, right now we are praying that as we spend time talking and learning and studying your word, that you, Lord God, will bless this time, that you will bless this fellowship, so that we may leave changed because of your presence and your wisdom. Discussion. And then also, I have, if you haven't brought it with you, um, notebooks, because I want to show you how to make this what we call an interactive notebook. So I'm going to kind of go over that. So the first thing I want to give you is the agenda. So I'm going to give you this. Put this over here for her. And I'll hold on to the rest right here. So the agenda is just, first of all, meant to kind of give you a guide of what we're doing each week so that you know coming in what we're going to do. So this is going to span for us over 4 weeks, a part of July and then a part of August. And then as you see in week 4, I have a discussion and a continued practice. So we're going to actually talk more on week 4 about, what do I want to call this? Evaluating the effectiveness of this time that we've had together and whether we would want to continue doing anything like this. So we're going to look at that in week 4 along with our study time as well. So week 1, you see what we're doing. That's where we are. Today we're going to be looking at how do I get a study Bible, or do I have a study Bible? And then actually, because a lot of people say, well, how do I start? I don't know where to start. And then we had, and I was thinking about this, we have twofold of really what happens when it comes to studying. We have some that are like, I don't know where to start. I have no idea where to start at. How do I know where to start? Then I have another group that will say, well, I don't mind studying. I've actually been doing a reading, but I'm not sure if I'm really studying. And we kind of second guess whether we're really doing anything, even though we may be doing something. So I think when I talk about where to start in the study Bible, I'm going to be able to answer both questions for maybe 2 types of groups of people that are studying. Just so you all know, I think Pastor may have hit it, but Pastor is also going to push this out there. So this is going to be recorded, and I really wasn't going to worry about it, but I said, if you're here and you want to set it up, I don't have a problem. So just so you know, that may be happening as well. So anyway, so here we go. So we're going to look at Bible options. We're going to look at the books of the Bible, and then we're going to go ahead and start our first discussion with our starting point. And I'll explain why we're starting at Mark chapter 1. So that's to this week, and then you can see what week 2, week 3, and I kind of already a little bit discussed week 4. Now, here's what I want you to do. If you have a notebook, I can give you one if you don't have one. If you do have one, you want to use it. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this, and I want you to make this an interactive notebook. This is something oftentimes done in schools. So this is my school teacher coming out in there. You're going to take this, and you're going to staple it to the first page. So this way, this book now becomes interactive because you will have this ability to look at it at any time and know what's going on and referencing back. So even if you write on this and take notes, you know you have a reference point and it's already in your notebook. So you just want to staple it right at the top. And just pass that around. Or here, you want to switch. So this, whoever gets this. All right, so that's just your agenda in there. And again, like I said, if you want to write on your agenda, you can do any of that. But this way, it's in your notebook. You constantly have it. It's an interactive notebook because you can be like, wait, but I got a note on that already. You see that? So that's what makes it interactive. So the first thing that I want to talk about in our time, and we're just going 1 hour, just so everybody knows. So I'm going to be very cautious and very conscientious of time. Even without a watch, I'm going to keep looking at my time because I've got to watch on today. So first thing I want to talk about is our Bible options, because that is one of the things. Pastor said when we were doing our new members class, if you recall, he talked about study Bibles. He had pulled up his worn study Bible. If you remember, he said this one is worn. I think his was an interlinear Bible that he talked about as a study Bible. So I just want to give you guys a couple of different options of study Bibles and allow you to kind of get an idea of what you may like, what you may be interested in, and give you cost, so you can get an idea of what it costs. Because study Bibles can be expensive. Study Bibles can be expensive. So you may want to shop around a little bit, but let me give you some ideas of it. So I'm going to give you guys this next page, and we're going to kind of talk through it, and I'm going to let you guys take a look at some of it, and we'll pause and have some discussion on it, so you can kind of talk about, well, what about this one, and tell me about that one a little bit more. So we'll do some of that. Does anybody have an extra pen for Sister Rosamond? I don't have one.
In there with my pocket. Okay. I'm just gonna you sure? Yeah, because I gotta tell David where I'm at.
Okay.
And let him know he can stay
All right.
here.
So let's start to talk about that. So I gave everybody the paper. So this is just giving you some ideas of stuff, right? So the first thing, everybody, that you can get is the traditional King James version, but you just have to make sure it says Study Bible. So you can have your regular King James version if you so choose, but just make sure that it says King James Bible Study Bible. Otherwise, you're just going to get your traditional Bible. It won't have any additional notes or things that will go along with study. Okay? So you can get that. The cost of your traditional King James Study Bible is going to be $20 and up. All right, so most of everything you're going to see on the list that I gave you is going to start at a minimal and tell you it goes.
Okay, so this is what you're talking about. This is a study.
Yes, see how it says Study Bible. Yes. Okay. So you want to make sure it's a Study Bible. Now, that's your traditional King James Study Bible, but again, like I said, make sure it actually says the words on there, Study Bible. Otherwise, you just get the basic Bible. It won't have, your concordance. It won't have your looking up. It won't have some of the other things that you may want to give you some referencing points. The second one I have on here, everybody, is a Schofield Study Bible. Okay, Schofield Study Bibles. One, you can get in a variety of translations. Remember, we talked about that in Sunday school before. That King James is just a translation. It is not the end-all, be-all Bible. I know we messing up some people's understanding because they think that King James is the only thing, and I gotta have a King James.
Yes.
And that is not necessarily the fullness of truth. Okay, King James was a translation because the original texts were written in a different language, and King James translated it into the European English. Okay, the original text, if we go back to the Old Testament, the original text was written in Hebrew Aramaic language. And the New Testament original translation was written in Greek. So whatever book we're grabbing is a translation. So King James is not the end-all, be-all.
Wow.
So Schofield, you can get a variety of translations. Your cost on a Schofield, when I was looking some of it up, I looked it up, you can get it as cheap as $23, but that's looking. And it's going to go up there, and it was kind of an average cost if you really were looking at about $35 to get a Schofield.
So, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The Schofield Study Bible that I have, I just happened to look up yesterday and see where it had 3, like the Roman number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that title?
No, I'm not that familiar. Now, this is my Schofield, and it's torn and worn, and I don't use it as often. But I will pause and let us have a moment where you can kind of just look through it. But again, the key thing when it comes to your study Bibles is you want to be able to have referencing areas. So Schofield is just the title. Let me just say it. Am I saying that this is like some more better than something else? No. Just at the time, and I was kind of one of those Bible collector people. Schofield was one of the more popular brands. And I got a Schofield Study Bible. But you want things like this in the back where you have your concordance, where you can look up words and try to get basic understanding of those words and things of that nature. Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of stuff we do can, but if you like, and I do, I'm still, when it comes to study, I like something in my hand, even though I do use my cell phone as well. And then there is a difference when it comes to some of your interpretations than what you get from your phone. So Schofield is just one of your study Bible variety types, and you can get it in a variety of translations. So you can get it in King James, New King James, New Living.
Oh,
I think you can get it in New Living. I'm pretty sure you can get it in New Living. You can get it in New American Standard, NASB, and I believe you can get it in NIV. Now I will put my disclaimer out here. I don't think NIV is the best translation. If you're going to get translations, am I saying don't get an NIV? I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I don't think it's your best translation.
Okay, and what about that other one, standard ES?
ESV.
English
Yes,
Standard Version.
Yeah.
I have not done as much on that, so I'm not exactly sure. But I haven't heard any controversy with ESV at this point, so I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. But NIV, I've heard and I've seen some quirkiness with the translation.
And my other question is, about the translations. What, I'm assuming the first Bible that was written, what language was that? Was that the language that Jesus spoke?
So going back, and like I said, for the Old Testament, the first language was the Hebrew Aramaic language, and then in the New Testament, the first language was Greek.
Okay. So now I'm going to be a little leery on what I read or what I say, because it may not be, like you said, the NIV is not maybe the very best translations. So, yeah.
But I don't think you have to be so don't be too cautious or too nervous, because the NIV is not necessarily steering you down the wrong path. I just don't think it always may be fully interpreting or giving you the right definition when it comes to certain words, and that's where you want to be careful. But that's what studying is going to do for us. So you'll be able to pick up on some of those things, because as we go through these 4 weeks and I'm showing you some things, you're going to have additional tools that you can pull out if you're reading that NIV and you're like, you're going to have some additional, come on in, you're going to have some additional tools that will help you guide that. So don't worry yourself or be so overly cautious, because that's what our study time will give to us, okay?
I'm all over the place. All
All right, so now, here's our next one, everybody. The next study Bible. Again, this is something that I did use at one point in time, and I don't have it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I want to get another copy, and I think I gave it away. That was my other thing. I would have study Bibles, and then somebody would need it, and I'd be like, "Here, take this study Bible," and then I don't have it. But I loved my Ryrie study Bible. So Ryrie, again, another just a person that wrote or took a translation and put it together. You know what I mean? But he made it into a study Bible. So Ryrie Study Bible, everybody. Again, you can get a variety of translations. So that's the good thing about Ryrie. Much like the Schofield, you're going to have your study references in there. So you're going to have some annotated notes. You're going to have your concordance. You're going to have some dictionary stuff. You're going to have some commentary that it's going to offer you so that you can take a look at it. And then the cost of the Ryrie, a little bit more expensive. Based on what I could see, $50 and up. So you're going to put out a little bit more money, but I really like the way Ryrie is set up. I thought it was very, very friendly. And you can, and I think when I had mine, if I'm correct, I had it in the New American Standard Version. Now you guys know when I'm reading sometimes here at the church, I use the New Living Translation version. I do use the New Living, but if you want to know what my recommendation, and this is just schooling, I recommend the New American Standard. Now, I'm telling you that I recommend the New American Standard because when I was at Philadelphia College of Bible, that was what they recommended unto us, and that was what we used most often in class, was the New American Standard version. So the NASB was the one that I used a little bit more often because of my study time at the Philadelphia College of Bible. The next one,
I was just saying.
So the next one, so Chrissy trying to catch everybody. I'm watching over here.
I'm sorry.
And quiet.
So the next study Bible, everybody, is the Dates Annotated Study Bible. And you can also get that. Now again, with the dates, you can get, listen to this, you can only get King James or New King James. So I gave it to her already.
I gave you that one.
So if you're using Dakes, you can only get it in King James and you can only get it in New King James. So Dakes doesn't have a variety of translations. Now, this is where Pastor's gonna come in, and him and I are gonna probably butt heads a little bit because he's not a Dakes fan. I am a Dakes fan. So we differ in that situation. Now he's gonna not like Dakes, but guess what? I'm gonna tell his business. But he used to have a Dakes too. But he doesn't like Dakes, and we've never really had a fullness of discussion. But he was speaking of some issues, I think.
Don't be trying to talk about me on a slide tip.
Racist or some kind of race ideologies or whatever. But Dakes was life to me when it came to translations. And came to reference Bibles. So somebody gifted this to me. So this is one I did not give away because somebody actually put my name on it and gave it to me as a gift. But Dakes is, again, one of the ones where you will have your annotations in the text. You will have some of their commentary in the text. You will have also, coming towards the back, some of your dictionary information back here where I can define, I can look at some original, like take it back to the Greek or the Hebrew. So the key thing is you want to get a study Bible that gives you some of these variety of options when you're looking at it. So I'll just kind of let you guys, if you want to grab. This is not large print, which is why I moved on from Dakes at times. But you can get Dakes in large print. You can get Dakes in large print. Because that's partly why I moved on a little bit from Dakes, because I was like, I can't see that anymore. So you can get it in large print. I like Dakes a whole lot. I'm telling you, I like Dakes a whole lot. Now Dakes is $60 and up, everybody. So definitely not cheap at all. Definitely not cheap at all. $60 and up. 60 was the lowest amount that I could find when I was doing my research on costs. Now, the next one, everybody, that I'm going to tell you about and show you is the New Oxford Annotated Bible, the New Revised Translation. Now, let me take you back. Why? What in the world? And give you the reason why. And I've been using this one just recently a little bit more as well. When I was at Rutgers really did change my life. It was a good change because I was only used to being at home, never lived anywhere else. I got on that campus at 18. I had just turned 18 a couple weeks before I got on that campus. But I didn't know my way for a while. So I was one of those super seniors. I was there an extra year in the summer to finish it up. But I determined, I kept my major, which was sociology, even though later on, as you start to understand what's going on and matriculating and all of that, I wish I had made a different choice major-wise. But as I narrowed it down to stay with my major, but looked at what I was going to do in my minor, and then at Rutgers, we also had to do a mini. I was a minor in Spanish at first, and I was like, that ain't it. So we switched the minor in Spanish and made that my mini because I had already taken 2 Spanish classes. Like, let me get out of there. And then went to where I was. So I moved to religion. So my minor is in religion. So when I was taking religious studies, one of the main classes that I took, this was the book that we had to use, which was the Oxford Annotated Bible. Now, the professor that led us to using this Bible was from England. So he had his accent and all that. So this is probably more heavy connected Oxford, connecting it to Britain, kind of that. But the translation is great, and the study references are amazing in here. So if you get the Oxford Annotated Bible, you're going to get a lot of that background information. Again, if I'm opening it up, you're going to see where you're going to have your annotations, you're going to have your extra notes here. Now, I happen to have found this. Now, I had an Oxford Annotated when I was at Rutgers. I have never unpacked all of our boxes from moving down here from Jersey. So I probably have this in the boxes somewhere in Jersey, but I don't know where it is. But one of the lovely things that I found down here in North Carolina is we have a lot of those bookstores that are old books where you can donate your books or whatever. And if you go into them and you don't mind books, and I don't mind books, I like reading and all of that, So I can go into these stores and have a good time and spend a little bit of time. So I was kind of rummaging through in Clayton, this bookstore called Papers and Paupers.
Uh-huh.
And I went on up in there and got to messing around and looking, and I found this for $5. And I said, oh, I'm gonna get this book right here.
What you say about dates? What did you say?
I
heard
I
you.
knew you was gonna have to break it. I said, you were gonna have a discussion.
Hello to you too.
So this is an excellent book. Now this one right here, let me tell you, because you have two different. You can get the new Revised Standard with the Apocrypha, or you can get it without it. Now this is with. Now when we say Apocrypha, let me help you out, because you're like, what in the world did you do to us?
A PO.
So what this means, everybody, is this book has a couple of extra books that are not in our regular Bible. So this one, if you are using it, it will give you, I'm trying to pull up one of the extra books that's in here. The Maccabees, you heard of them. You heard people talking about the Maccabees. So if you have the Apocrypha, you're going to get the first and second book of Maccabees is in here. Pastor was talking about it when he said that other book. What was the other book you told us that wasn't
Enoch.
Enoch. Enoch is not in here, I don't believe. But what was the other one you said that we reference here?
Ecclesiasticus.
Ecclesiasticus is in here. So you have the Apocrypha will have some of those additional books that did not make the final Bible cut, but are still essential to religious history.
Because I was going to say, what is this going to do for me?
Right. It gives you more information historic wise. So you get some more, because here's the thing. We have our, and I'll pass this around so anybody want to look at this one as well. We have our Bible, right? Here's one of the, let me go back and tell the story that lead me to this point. Here was one of the things that I remember happening, again, being on the campus at Rutgers University. I remember getting on that campus, and I remember meeting people of all walks of life. That was number one. But I remember meeting a young man who found out that I was, a believer. And I don't know, but I was challenged tremendously on the campus with being a believer. So I feel like my faith has went through stretches from being there. But one of the main things that happened when I got on that campus was that I had somebody come to me and say, how do you believe that? Why do you believe that? That book is not even in order. And being young in faith and not knowing how to answer that, which I didn't attempt to answer because I didn't have an answer for it. But now being able to see it, but back then not seeing it, and then having religion as my minor, starting to see that you have a world of religion. And so here we have religion that we know and understand on this western side. But there's a whole other side of it on the eastern side that really formulates what we have now, right? So just like I said to you guys before, you can get a King James, but is King James the end-all be-all? No, it's just another translation. But it is a translation that we have adopted on the western side, and we've made it seem like it's the sacred text and you can't use any other text besides that, then that's not necessarily really accurate, right? So when we start to see more and understand world history, we actually start to see all the interconnectedness of some of our other religions. Even though I'm not a Muslim, even though I don't believe in all of that, but when we look at world religion, we see the interconnectedness of all of it and where some of it stems from and where it starts to push out from. Now, with that understanding, on this side of religion, I can understand now Joseph C. Smith. Mormonism. Now, I'm not falling for Mormonism, but I do understand where it comes from. It still has the same connection in world religion that's coming from over here, right? Because Joseph C. Smith, and I'm giving a very simplistic view when I say this, believes that he is just like what we would call the prophet. That he heard from God and God told him this, even though some of what he said is very far-fetched. It's the same concept. It's somebody saying, I heard from God, and they created a whole foundation and system by which people are believing. So when we have some of that Maccabees, we start to have some of our historical understanding that now may make sense for why we have some of the things we have and the way we have.
Okay, this is almost scary, but the pastor said one Sunday he was talking about being, you know, how strong he believes about Jesus. And he was talking something about being on the plane with Muhammad or whoever. He said, and I would speak to them about Jesus. I feel just that confident. But I don't. I have a very close friend. She is a Jehovah's Witness. And she and I, we don't discuss the Bible, period. We talk for hours. We don't discuss because she believes this and I believe this. And I'm not strong enough in my belief to overpower her. And she's not strong enough to overpower what I think. So we just don't discuss it. We just discuss the plan.
I'll throw this out at you. I think if you change the dynamic of the conversation, then you can have the conversation. Your goal is not to overpower. Your goal is to stand on your foundation. I'll give you an example of what I mean. One time when I was at my church in New Jersey called New Strength, we would go out and do street ministry. And we were out doing street ministry. We were out there in the streets talking, and I come across a 5%. And if y'all know 5%ers connected to the Muslim, and they believe certain things. So I'm talking to him, he's talking to me, and he's like, well, sis, I don't want to really talk to you because I don't want to have to change your mind. Because by the time I get done, you're going to be thinking differently. And I said, no, I understand what you're going to say. And he was like, nah, sis, I don't want to change your mind. I said, bro, you go ahead and say whatever it is you want to say. So he started talking, he said everything that he had to say. When he was done, I said, see, it is amazing that I just heard from you. And guess what? You didn't change my mind. I still believe in Jesus. I think you want to change the conversation dynamics. I don't need to overpower you, and you don't need to overpower me. But if I need to say something, I'm going to stand firm on what I've said. Even if you disagree with me, I can still have the conversation enough to say, I know we may not agree on this, but for me, this is what I really believe. And I think it is our job, Pastor has said it before, it is our job, can I say it this way, people might disagree with me out there in the world, like, it is our job, according to the text, when we really look at it, to make other people jealous. I'm supposed to make God, through Christ Jesus, look so good that you want to say, what is going on? When we read the text, I'm reading right now. I'm with still small voice with the morning voice. I'm doing walking with the prophets. I'm going through each of the prophetic books. When we look at those prophetic books, one of the things that ended in Zechariah, he says to them that individuals are going to know the source of your strength. And because they're going to know the source of your strength, they're going to be connected here. Your goal is not to overpower, it's just to show. So much so that individuals are going to be like, it's okay. So change the dynamics. It's not overpowering. You don't got to overpower her. You don't got to even convince her. You just stand on your firm foundation. If she want to talk about what she want to talk about, it's okay. I can listen because you're not changing it. I still believe in Jesus Christ. You didn't weaken my faith in one way or the other, and I can still share with you as you share with me, and we can still walk away, and nothing has changed because of that. So that just change the dynamic. That's what I would say to that conversation. It's not about overpower.
My neighbor is Jehovah's Witness. We get along just fine. We talk about prayer. She doesn't mention Jehovah. It wasn't necessary. I told her I just don't do religion. I just don't do religion. And we do everything together. One thing, not everything, we do a lot together as neighbors, but they will not come to Baptist, Catholic, AME, or anything. They would not do that. I say this to her son, he has a disability, like coming over watching movies and all that stuff. That's it. We don't get into that other part of it.
And it's okay. You know
But
what I
she
mean?
knows.
It's okay.
She knows.
But you become the beacon of light, because there will be a time where they will know the source of your strength. Right? So the Oxford annotated, y'all saw I got that for $5. That was through rummaging and searching, and I was like, oh my God, I know I ain't gonna catch that at no cheaper price. I'm grabbing this up. Thank you for whoever it was that turned that in, because normally everybody, you're trying to get that, it's gonna be $35 and okay. And then lastly, everybody, when it comes to some of your Bible translations, you can also get, and we see these out now, your streamlined Bibles, your reference Bibles. Some of these newer reference Bibles have a lot of information. You can get them for much cheaper, okay? They have your concordance in the back. They have some of your lookups in the back. And you can grab this now. You can see this one again is old, got pieces falling off of it. And I don't use this much, and you're going to see why. Because you see how small it is. So that is why I switched over to this one. Because it's a little bit bigger. I probably need to go a little bit bigger than this. But this is also another one of the streamlined reference Bibles that I use more often than anything. And this one is my New Living Translation, which is another translation I do wholeheartedly also enjoy and like. Most of my other ones are King James Version. So those are some things you want to look up. And those slimline reference Bibles or other reference Bibles, you can find some of them at $20, a little bit more reasonable and up. So you have an idea of some Bibles that you can get, and you have an idea of some costs. Now, the only one I don't have on here, everybody, and I do want it, and I don't know why I didn't put it on here. I think I just forgot. They do have a Bible called the Keyword Study Bible. Keyword Study Bible. And actually on the cover, at least the one that I used to have, again, why do I not have it? Because somebody was like, hey, here you go, and I never replaced it. It actually has like an old-fashioned key on it. The Keyword Study Bible actually has your Greek and Hebrew concordance right in the Bible itself, along with annotations. So I love the I love the Keyword Study Bible because I can get some of that same word study right in the Bible. Like it's right there. It's going to give you a lot of that right in it. Again, is it cheap? Nope, that one's going to run you somewhere about $50 and but that was actually one of my favorites. So if I could replace two Bibles, it would be the Ryrie Study Bible that I gave away and my Keyword Study Bible for the Greek and Hebrew that are in there. And then the last one that I would never tell anybody to get, and I'm going to tell you I got it because somebody provoked me to jealousy on having it. When I was at Philadelphia College of Bible, I was in a class. I forget what our class was this particular year, but I was around a lot of obvious Bible scholars.
Absolutely.
And I was around these Bible scholars, and they were reading in Greek. So they literally had the Greek translation. And I tell you, I was a jealous individual. I was like, why do I not know Greek? I want that.
It's no Spanish.
Right. I was hating. I ain't gonna lie, ain't gonna front to tell you the truth. So they provoked me. Here we go, show you how you just gotta do what you do. And let other people be provoked. So it provoked me to go get and find. So there is a New Testament version that gives you the English and Greek translation, English on one side, Greek on the other side. I did have it. I think I have it in one of them boxes that have not been unboxed yet. So I'm not going to go and replace it. I need to go through them boxes and see if I can find it. But they do have a New Testament with the English on one side and Greek on the other. And it provoked me to go get one of them because I want to be in the class and I want to see. I got Greek over here too. You ain't the only one that's going to just look at the Greek. I can do it too. But, so yeah, they got me on that. See, that's what I'm saying. See, that person wasn't doing nothing but being that person, and it provoked me to be like, wait a minute, how do they know how to do this? I need to know how to do it. That's what we want. We want to live our life in such a way that provokes individuals. So I don't got to be overpowering anybody. I'm just going to stand on what I stand on. You wanted to figure it out. All right, so there we go. So that's how some of our study Bibles. All right, so now let's take a look at the next thing. So I told you some of your Bible options. The next thing I want to give you, some of you already have this. So if you don't want to take it, that's okay. But if you don't have this, you definitely want to take it. Now, let me tell you what I did because I made a mistake. So we're incorporating a little bit of a mistake. When I was putting this in to make copies, I did not realize that it was front and back on both. So I thought it was one side, and I wanted to make it two sides. And I missed one whole side. So with that being said, everybody, here's the way you want to look at it. So let me show you. So the front part, we have the Old Testament going all the way down to Amos, right? Then you want this, right? You want this side, which gives you the rest of the prophets, and then starts the New Testament, and then the backside ends the New Testament. So I didn't realize, so I made a mistake, but I wasn't going to waste paper, so we just kind of went with that. So everybody give you this. Now, some of you have it, and you have it from when we did our conference. So if you still have it, and you're like, I don't need it, but clip it into your notebook when you get home, okay? But otherwise, I'll give this to everybody.
I like paper.
I do too. I do too. I told him that I like paper. I'll give you this, and I'm gonna go through this really quick, and then we're gonna jump into a little bit of a study with that.
I think you got it that time.
As
No,
you're
you need
doing
both
that,
pages.
Elise,
You need both pages. Don't
Oh,
go.
okay.
That's right.
as you're doing that, Elise, have you ever heard of the companion Bible?
I had.
And I think it's almost exclusively, well, I'm starting to see it now more, but I got it many, many moons ago. You can see how raggedy my Bible is on there. But it was, y'all ever heard of it was a television show I used to get on satellite when I was in Texas called Shepherd's Chapel.
Yeah.
You had the biggest satellite I've
Oh
ever
my
seen.
God, I had the huge satellite. And he was a verse by verse, line by line studier of the Word of God. I would watch this man for hours on hours, and then I would love him when he gets to, hey, let me answer your questions. And he says, hey, I have the companion Bible, and I fell in love with that Bible. That's when I threw Jakes in the proverbial trash. But
Because I watch him.
It's on every morning.
Yeah.
he's still on. I know his son is taking over for him. I'm not even sure if he's still alive.
What's the name? You know the name?
No, he's passed on.
He has passed away. Okay.
What's his name now?
Because it was Shepherd's Chapel, but his name was oh my goodness, I can't remember.
Is it Bachelor or no?
It wasn't Baxter. I need one more copy for this.
Okay. Which one? The Bible translation?
No, the
The
books.
Bible.
And one more book. Chrissy was trying to get me up to speed, and I was being difficult. And hand me another book.
All right. So now,
Um,
yeah, my Bible stuff is from.
Oh, no.
which color would you like?
Pink is fine.
Is he? You have this one? Or you need another one?
I got that one.
All right, so now let's talk about that. Now I shared with you all how I got to Rutgers, and the gentleman says to me, how do you even believe in this Bible? It has all kind of errors in it. You're reading a book that doesn't make sense, and you're saying all kind of variety of things. And I didn't have an answer then. I have an answer now. Okay, and that's just development in time. So when we look at the Bible, number one, our Bible is not organized by dates and times. It's not a book of history, though it is a book of history. In other words, you can't read our Bible and expect to be like, oh, this is concretely in order. This is exactly how it works. It's not the way our Bible is organized. So what I just gave you is the organizational structure.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So if we take a look at this, it is the organizational structure of our Bible so that you can understand what you're actually reading. So let's talk about this, and let's start to see even where it meshes. So if you want to take some notes on meshing, we can do that as well here. So looking first where it says the Pentateuch or the Torah. The Pentateuch is the Greek, Torah is your Hebrew, right? So your first 5 books, we're pretty familiar with them. That's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, right? So those are your first 5 books. The Pentateuch is what Greek calls it. The Torah is what they called it in Hebrew terms. Your next section, and I'm sorry, it's so very, very light, so you might want to write this. Your next section is the books of history. And it is on there, but it's very light. It didn't come across as dark as I would like for it. So if you want to go ahead and take a note, that's the books of history. So our historical books, everybody, are Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Okay?
So all those are
History books. Now, at the same time, remember, are they necessarily in the fullness of exact order? Yes and no. Yes and no. Okay? So you want to just be mindful of that part. For example, Esther. When you're reading Esther, you see it's like at the end, but
Right.
that story of Esther is not at the end. That can jump back up into other parts. So even though these are books of history, remember it's not in numerical historical order, but they are the books of history. Okay, so don't necessarily embrace it in the sense of okay, this is what was first and this is what was next. You know what I mean? Because like I said, Esther could jump back up,
Yeah.
right? Nehemiah is low, Ezra is low, but remember Nehemiah and Ezra, especially Ezra, is telling after the exile. So we got jumps and gaps that are happening here, right? So you want to make sure you understand that. Then our next books, everybody, are the prophetic books. Now, here's the key thing you want to remember. Your prophetic books mix back into your history books.
That was my heart.
So even though your prophetic books are down here, where do they mesh? Back up in here. So a lot of what you have prophetic, you got to read to see when are they prophesying for. You heard me mention Zechariah, right? Well, guess what? Zechariah is going to be kin to Ezra's time. Because Zechariah was really prophetic during the time of rebuilding the temple. Now I'm reading Zephaniah now.
Uh-huh.
Well, guess what? Zephaniah is back up in this king's area because he was during the time of Josiah. And he's prophetically speaking to the time when Babylonia is going to come.
Oh, wow.
So you got to pay attention to your prophetic books to see what the audience is so you can start to see where it meshes into the history. So the structure is not about dates when it comes to the Bible. It's about categories. So we have our major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel. And some of you might say, there is no prophet Lamentations. We know, but it is the major writing from the prophet, right? So that's why it falls in there. And then everybody, it's very light, everybody. But after Daniel, it's very light if you want to write it in. Those are our minor prophets. So that was lightning, didn't come as through as dark as I wanted. That's the minor prophets. Now, let me answer a question. What's the difference between major and minor prophets? Nothing. Everybody understand what I'm saying? What's the difference? Nothing. Except for the length of the writing.
Oh,
Okay?
I thought I heard something about it. Okay.
The length of the writing. And I say that because some people, we think, oh, well, they're minor, so they must be itty bitties.
Right.
No. Their prophecy is no less urgent and important as the majors. The only difference is the length of the text. So I'm in Daniel and I got chapter upon chapter upon chapter upon chapter upon chapter. And I go to Haggai and he's 2 chapters. It's just the writing. It's just the length of the writing. That's the only difference. You know what I mean?
When you go like Christians, their doctrine, some of it's they changed their doctrine. I went to University of a spiritual church, which they did a lot of things that I didn't understand. But because my kid's grandmother, it was owned by her, the doctrines was changed. They had like fathers, Father Hurley, supposed to be the next prophet. So how does that change the doctrines in the Bible? When we read the same Bible?
I don't think it changes much when it comes to the Bible as much as it speaks to the organization. So when you look at, and here's what I would say to that, and Pastor, I'm glad he's in here so he can correct me if I'm speaking wayward. When we look at our different denominations that are in existence, from our Christian denominations to our Mormonism, our Jehovah's Witness, and all of that, a lot of it, you'll know, we all are using the same thing in some kind of way, right? The difference is our organizational styles,
Okay.
right? So, for example, right, you have and I'm gonna use them just for right now because it's on my mind. You have the Church of God in Christ that really flew out of or birthed out of the Assemblies of God. You have the AME Church, right? That really birthed out of the Methodist Church because there was something that was happening that caused for the Kojic Church coming out of the Assemblies of God. It was dealing with race. So the Church of God in Christ was formed out of the Assemblies of God because we weren't being identified racially. So we created the Church of God in Christ to know who we are as African American people. The AME Church coming out of the Methodist Church again. There, greater level of history. So I'm speaking very simplistically, but we had the group that was in Philadelphia. I believe it was Absalom Jones and now the other name is Richard Allen,
Yeah.
who were treated poorly in the Methodist Church in Philadelphia. And out of that experience, they created the AME Church. So we're not really changing Bible. We're changing organizational thoughts of how we do stuff. So I would contend that more than anything, just like Mormonism, still is coming out and talking about Jesus and God.
Yes.
Still some of the same thing. They just now changed the way they organize and what they do and how they do it. And even when you look at that, they're not without, just putting it out there, they're not without spot or wrinkle because Joseph C. Smith had some crazy ideologies that eventually were exposed. Hence why we have Brigham Young coming in, because Brigham Young took over for Joseph C. Smith because he got a little nuts. So you have to be careful. So that's why you just want to watch and be mindful as you're looking at the different organizations themselves. And you want to be mindful of what they're doing because unfortunately we have some people that are doing it, and I'm just calling it in my terms some nutso things. And you gotta watch it.
So
You gotta watch it.
and I'm just saying, the 66 is it the lost books of the Bible? Yeah, there's lost books of the Bible.
Well, let me say this when you say that, because I heard somebody say something about the lost books of the Bible. Let me emphasize this, because I think that this could be easily become down the rabbit hole situations that do we really need. Now, with that being said, when I was studying at Rutgers with the minor in religion, there were some things that we were reading. Like I had the Book of Timothy, not the Book of Timothy. I can't think of it right now. And I had this other writing that was called Q. Okay. It's not in the Bible, but it was an additional book of text that was found on a scroll that was rewritten and put into a book. Again, just like the Book of Maccabees, just like some of our other books, the Book of Enoch, like when Pastor was going through it. Can I know it? Sure. Can I learn about it? Sure. Can it build up my understanding of some world religion? Absolutely. But do I go down a rabbit hole as if God is holding something back from us that we don't know about? No. So be careful, because what's happening in this season is we got these itching ears because we believe everybody's trying to keep something a secret from us.
Yep.
You can read it all, but do I need to go down this rabbit hole and now think that there's something foundationally wrong? Absolutely not. So be careful with that. So I don't know the number. Are there some books that said they lost or unknown? Yeah. But I also know that's some culture stuff that's happening, so you better be careful.
Well, my thing is that if you found them, if you have them to read, how are they lost? So that's my response.
I like that.
How can they be lost? They're in this book. So they will come at you with a lot of that stuff. God said, and all about get understanding. So understand things, understand history. And if you don't know it, don't even entertain the conversation.
I agree. So the second page, everybody, because remember I told you the first page kind of got cut off, right? So you have a few of the minor prophets. The second page gives you the rest of the minor prophets. Then the next part of our Old Testament is the book of poetry. So you have Psalms, Proverbs, Songs of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Job. Guess what? Where do all these mesh? Back into the books of history.
Yeah.
They're in their category, which is poetry, but where do they mesh? Back into the books of history. So Job, for example, really puts you back into your Joshua era almost. It's like you're up in your beginning parts, even though it's back here in Job. But really, that storytelling is something that really was early on, like in your beginning phases of history. And some of you might say, how is Job a book of poetry? It's a monologue. Think of it as acting. It's a play. Think of it as a play. That's why it becomes in that creative style.
So why people talk so bad about Song of Solomon? I mean, not bad in a way, but it's like it's a lot of sexual.
It is. It is. You're talking about the breastises and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's how I like it.
But he is showing you in the same way. You're really getting a simile. You're getting a simile. You're getting, that figurative language, because as he is speaking towards the love of his wife, he's also speaking towards the intimacy in its simile, in its comparison of the relationship, the intimacy with Christ.
Okay.
Or with God. Because they don't know Christ at this point, right?
So, because seldom preachers preach from this, especially Song of Solomon. Is it because of the congregation which they're speaking to? Because I know I probably didn't take all this. Like, Lord, what is he talking about? I didn't come to church to hear about somebody's.
Well, they say
so
some-
that's the background.
I think it depends on my opinion. Because I've heard people preach from it and do a wonderful job.
Okay.
It depends on the maturity of the person that's presenting it. Can I say it that way? Because if you're going to make it raunchy, then it's going to be raunchy. But if you make it intimate, it's going to be intimate. One of the best that I've ever heard it preached, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of hers. I ain't gonna lie. Now I don't put her in the place of God, but I think she's a great teacher. Is Lisa Harper. Lisa Harper. Many people don't know her, but y'all should. Because if you like Priscilla Shire, and I'm not saying she's a Priscilla Shire, but Lisa is way deeper than that. And I ain't knocking Priscilla Shire. I think she's great. Y'all heard of, and she's contemporary to them, and she loved them. Christine Kane,
The women on TVN.
Joyce Myers. I mean, she's contemporary to all these people. But in my opinion, her intellect is far superior to any of the ones that I've just mentioned. And I heard her preach on the Songs of Solomon. And by the time she got done, in the fullness and the rawness of what she presented, you heard the intimacy of love between God and his people. And the satisfaction. And she used the text when we talked about the breasts and all that. And the way she laid it out was speaking towards the comfort and satisfaction that we find and rest in God. I think it's just the maturity of the individual and how they want to present it. Now, I think we do stay clear of it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll use Sunday school as an example. Like, we never would have willingly went to the book of Revelation.
That's I'm thinking about Revelation.
We would have never willingly went to the book of Revelation. But the curriculum said go to Revelation. And we found ourselves in Revelation. And by the time we got done in what God had in store, we saw Revelation in a whole different way. The scary book all of a sudden was like, wait a minute, this is beautiful. Are you serious? But for me, for you, if I continued in the same path that I had been in mind-wise, I ain't messing with Revelation.
Yeah.
That's a scary book.
Yeah.
But by the time we really got into that study and the discussion of it all, we were all walking away like, this book is really eye-opening and it's so different now that now ain't nobody scared of it, or at least we're not, like we once were. So I think it is a matter of, where we are able to start seeing it with some level of maturity.
And we are, I won't say we. Some people think that certain parts of anything that has to do with sexuality or sexually explicit information is too much for their children, for the young people, for the kids' ears. So a lot of times, for that reason, they won't discuss. But, you know, Pastor Yarborough, he just, you know,
He gonna talk about it, yeah, he
he
gonna
just-
talk about
he
it.
just-
I mean, we don't talk about it at church. We're gonna talk about it at. Because
Exactly.
they're not gonna talk about it at school anymore. I remember we used to have a sex class at school.
That's
They're
it.
not
Now,
gonna talk.
we still do have it, but I know that being a counselor now, being on the other side and having to be a part of scheduling it, they don't talk like what we were
Mm-hmm.
growing up on.
Oh, okay.
Now they mainly really talk about it on levels of puberty and
Okay.
maturity. So it is not like really going into the anatomicals and explaining and this and that. Yeah, they're not trying to do all that.
Yeah.
So they mainly talking about for the girls specifically, because I haven't really been on the boys one too much. For the girls, like menstruation.
Yeah.
Now that would be a part of what we would talk about before, but we got way more. Now that's pretty much all you really see.
And the Bible talks about that and other topics, and we ought to address it. You know, when it talks about our faith is at filthy rags, that's exactly the comparison he is making. And it's like, we should talk about absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Many of the young, over my years as a pastor, many girls who have gotten pregnant in the church, whether in wedlock or not, they was like, Pastor, you should have preached more about this. Maybe I wouldn't have been out there. And I'm like, wow.
But that's my parents died when I was young, and that's where I got most of my information from, was from the church.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all. We probably need to do a lot more. I would agree with that. As a person that probably needs to add more of it. So right here, everybody, the next part didn't come out as clear. It says the New Testament. So now we're switching from Old to New. So now your New Testament again, not written in historical timing, right? So you have your Gospels. Then after your Gospels, everybody, it's kind of light, but that's your books of history. And you notice it's just one. So Acts is our book of history. So what does that tell us? That everything that happens after Acts in writing, where does all this mesh back in? Into your history, right? So Acts is our history book. Then we go to the epistles. So all these epistles mesh back to where? Acts.
They sure do.
Right? So everybody following how this goes, right? So it's not written according to time, it's written according to or organized according to category. And as we understand that, then we can start to mesh it back in where it belongs. So all of your epistles and your letters, and this goes from that side to everybody to the back side of your original page, because that's where I made the mistake. So those are all your letters. Specific your Paul letters. So those first epistles and letters, those are your Paul letters. So if you want to make a note, those first set, that's your Paul writing. Then we got another set of letters, and I call them, and you can barely see it, but I call these the books of the apostles. So your first set of writings right after Acts are your Paul letters that push back in there, right? Then your next set, where's your original page?
That's how you get that Pauline
Starting
story.
at Hebrews.
Yeah, starting at Hebrews. These are your apostle writings. So you got James and Peter. I think I got James on here twice, y'all, so forgive me for that. Then you have, I think I had Peter and James on here twice. Listen, y'all say I was asleep or something when I did it. I was a little bit asleep. I don't know what I just did.
It is first and second.
We got that.
But I said it twice. I did it twice. And then you got John and you got Jude. So these are your writings from the apostles as well. So just kind of think about it in that regards. And then your last book is your end time book, which is your book of Revelation. And excuse me for that double writing.
So we just X out.
You can
5 and 7.
X out, yeah, that section that I redid. Sorry about that.
Because it helps. Because
Alright. So there, so why is that important for studying? I hope you already heard a little bit of it, because now it starts to make sense when I'm reading certain things, where it actually starts to fit in. Because that's a part of why we struggle a little bit, is because we're trying to organize it into timing, and we're not understanding timing. Just like in Sunday school, we've been trying to emphasize and put it out there. Just like when we read chapter by chapter, that doesn't mean day by day. Chapter by chapter could mean 10 years between the two. Could be 5 years between the two. But contextually, it's still applying and making sense. So we want to kind of put timing in there so we're not confused. So when someone says your book don't make sense, it's out of order, you can say, no, actually it's not out of order, it's in category. And you can begin to explain that you understand the categories. And you can also begin to share with them and no, it's not a day by day. It could be year by year, it could be month by month, it could be 10 years, it could be a decade between the two. Because as I was saying on Still Small Voice, Morning Voice the other day, God sees afar off. So when I'm looking at the books of the prophets, and you're like, well, how does that speak to Christ? Because for God, when he was giving them the message, he was speaking to their time, but he was also speaking afar off of something that was far better to come.
And that didn't 400 years surpass between the
Between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
So it was nothing said.
But the understanding is that there was nothing being said between that time. That God was saying. You know, because we so frequently, so many prophets nowadays, everybody hearing from God every other hour. So we got to be careful with some of this, right?
And and I'm gonna let this cat on the bag. Like yesterday morning, I was up at 3:00 and went back to sleep. 3:00 a.m. Went back to sleep at 7:21. I shared this with the prayer line, but what it is that I started out studying Matthew. Holy Spirit let me there. However, as time went by, I'm writing and I'm like, God, why you got me going here? Why you got me going there? Long story short, I end up dealing with the Mount of Transfiguration. And with that, and along the way, I'm like, God, what does Moses and Elijah have to do with all this? And then had me writing down the mountains and the different places where things happened. And I'm like, God, why weren't they buried? Because I would hear sermons where, well, it's in the word too, about how Moses wasn't buried, Elijah wasn't buried, and that type thing. And so it was like, whenever I read it yesterday, the understanding that I have is that the first 5 books, it was the book of the law. However, Jesus did come. Jesus came, and he came to fulfill the law. And what started all this was, and watch I get the word wrong, it was pacifist, Pacifist, is what who Jesus was, and the Jews was upset because they thought Jesus was coming was going to be a warrior, but he was not. And so and that was that. And it was just I don't want to use the word all over the place, but it was just the areas that the Holy Spirit was leading me, because I even ended up in Leviticus and I ended up in Ezra, and I'm like, okay, God, what is really going on? But at the end of the day, it's the connectedness of what God is showing and what God was revealing to the apostles, Peter, John, and James, because Jesus told them, don't talk about what took place here. And whenever they went away, they still was wondering, like, what was really happening there. I'm paraphrasing here, but it helped to make that connection, because that's what God was doing with Jesus for the world at that time.
I think it allows us to see the connection. I don't think it allows everyone else, because we talked about that in Sunday school as well, too, in our talks. We got to understand we're living on a different end of this.
Yes.
We're living with the Bible. We're living with knowing an outcome. We live in knowing this. They were living in a time frame where they were experiencing firsthand some stuff that they did not know or understand, because God sees afar off. So we have to know that. But here's the thing, as you were saying this, and we'll start to wrap this up because it is 2:32, and I want to talk about the starting point before we wrap up here, because we're going to use that next Thursday when we jump into an actual study. So for those of you that were watching online, just so you know, you're like, well, I didn't hear them study yet. Yeah, we did. We did a lot of unpacking of things that are going to help us as we really take a look at, well, how do I start to study so this makes sense? So say it 2 ways. Number one, we also saw the frailty of humanity in that process. And let me say why we saw the frailty of humanity. Because they thought Jesus was supposed to come in a certain way. Let's be honest. We think the same thing. I think Jesus is supposed to do a certain thing the way I think Jesus is supposed to do a certain thing. And God has made it clear, because he sees afar off, that you'll never put me in a box. So what you thought I was and what you thought it was going to be ain't the way it's going to be. It's going to be what I said it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to help you. Because I was that same way. When my mom was sick, and I shared this with y'all before, I was praying for healing. And I prayed for healing, and in my mind, I know what healing looked like. Because healing was supposed to look like her right here with me. She should be sitting in that chair. That's what my prayer of healing was. That's the way I saw healing. Well, she should be sitting in that chair talking about, yep, that's my daughter, right? And the revelation came to me much later after she died. And God said to me in a revelation, and when I'm saying God said to me, because here's one of them ones, because I don't know about you, but I'm one of them ones that I thought I was supposed to hear God speak, and it was supposed to be like, Elise, you gonna be okay. And but it was God speaking to me in a revelation, in a mindset that clicked and said, I did what you asked me to do. I healed her. I healed her in such a way that she ain't got to worry about bills no more. I healed her in such a way that she don't have not an ounce of pain no more. I healed her in such a way that she ain't got to worry about worry no more. I healed her in such a way. And when I was able to grab a hold of that, it allowed me to say, wait a minute, did I put you in a box? Because I decided you were supposed to look like this, and it was supposed to be like this. So we've got to understand, and I think the mistake that we see in the text is that they thought Jesus was supposed to be something. And God said, no, he's being what I sent him to be.
Yes.
And he never allowed them to put him in a box. Ever. So he was always a challenger. I don't even want to say he was a pacifist, because if I'm saying he's a pacifist, I would say he was nonviolent. And I can't say that, because when he was ready to whip that table up and throw it over, he had some anger in him. So was he really a pacifist, or was he able to say, you'll never put me in a box? I'll deal with it as I deal with it. So we have that right there. So we break this down into beginning to see this. How do I start? Because remember I said it starts with two types of people when it comes to studying the Bible. The one group of people that we have is, I want to study, but I don't know where to start. So hopefully we gave you some tools to give you an idea of where to start. Some of you are thinking in your head, wait a minute, I think I want to go get one of them study Bibles. I think I'm going to go check out some of this pricing and see if I can find something that's cheaper, but I think I want to get this study Bible. So some of you, we started you because you're now thinking, all right, what do I want to get? Some of you already got some study Bibles, you'll be like, wait a minute, I think I might want to add one to my list.
If I found room.
If I find room. Then the second one, I had people who you already been doing some reading, you've already been doing some understanding, but you're like, I don't know if I'm really doing it. So the next group for you, I hope that what I'm showing you today is that you're already on the right path. And you got to give yourself a little bit more credit. Because you think studies should look like this because you're trying to think about like intellectual philosophers and theologians. And you need to just be you. My beginning journey when it comes to studying the Bible was when I got saved, which was around about 16, 17 years old, right? And I remember praying, and I'll be one of the ones, you know, when I'm 16, 17, I was a little odd duck. People thought I was a little crazy when I got saved and got into the Word of God, right? And I would be praying and I would say, God, show me in the Word of God. And I was one of them ones, open it up. Whatever he opened up, this God, the Holy Spirit told me how to just study like that. But one of the things he did show me was, he showed me the offices that we have in our churches we organize. Prophets, priests, teachers, and I knew I would fit in one of those categories. So now I needed to study. So now, and I like books anyway, so this was up my alley. So I would just read. Some stuff I would read, and I don't know what the heck I just read. But I would read it. And some stuff I read, and I really understood. But here was the blessing. As I was reading, even though I may not have understood everything, I was understanding something. And then when I would get into church, and I was going to St. John Baptist Church at this time, Ray Baptist, everybody. And I'm at St. John Baptist Church, and Pastor Townsend would be preaching, and all of a sudden, I knew what he was talking about. So now, when he would say, you know, David, da-da-da-da-da, I know what David he's talking about. Even if I don't know all of it, I know what he's talking about. Jonah, oh, wait a minute, I know Jonah. So now when he's preaching on it, and I remember that I'm reading it, right?
Yeah.
When he's preaching, I'm like, oh, this is what this is saying. This is how this is fitting in. Now I got this because I got the basics of the story. You're doing nothing wrong with getting your basics. So now, where do I start? Mark. On here, Mark chapter 1. So giving you homework, read over Mark chapter 1 between now and next Thursday. Can you read it multiple times? Yep, as a good old teacher, that's some good reading right there. It's like a detective. Read it multiple times. I know Mark. Read it multiple times. Mark chapter 1. Why are you telling me to start at Mark? Because goodness knows it starts with Matthew. So why are you not starting with Mark? Why are you starting with Mark and not Matthew? Here, you want to know why? Because we want to get right into who Jesus is. Well, would Matthew be the right place? I don't need to go into genealogy right now. I'm just trying to begin my study. And if I get into that genealogy, it's going to break me off into something that I don't need to get into right at this moment. Let me start learning Jesus at the place of ministry. Mark is your fast-paced gospel. Mark starts at ministry and takes us to his death. Mark is fast. Mark is moving. And it's meant to be that way on purpose. Theologians say the first writing and what Matthew and Luke and John to some extent are referencing is Mark. So let's start where we believe foundationally is, and that's Mark. And Mark gets right to it. Is it important for me to know about his birth? Absolutely. But if I'm a beginning reader or a beginning studier, what's going to be more important, in my opinion, is his ministry. Start knowing his work.
Yep.
So if you want a starting point, start at Mark.
And that ties back into what the pastor's saying. Do the work. Do the work. We gotta work, y'all.
So that's where we're going to start. So Mark chapter 1, everybody. And we'll hopefully get into Mark chapter 2. So if you look really quick, wrapping this up. Week 2, everybody, we're going to go in. How do I understand? How do I take notes? So be ready. Mark chapter 1, because we're going to be note taking. We're going to be working on that comprehension part. How do we get it? I'm giving you some ideas. We're going to talk about summary writing. We're going to talk about outlining and annotation. And if you are able to get your study Bible, bring it here with you. Because we're going to break some myths when it comes to our Bibles. Because some of us think, I can't touch my Bible. It's got to be sacred. And if y'all were looking at my Bible, you saw a lot of writing. Right? You saw a lot of writing, right? All right, so bring your stuff next time, whatever you want, because that's where the annotation comes in. And we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 1. And if we have time, we'll start looking at Mark chapter 2. All right, so we'll be digging in a lot more, less of this talking part, and more right into the text when we come in next week. All right? Any questions or anything before we go out of here? None? All right, tell a friend of a friend. Let's max out this room so that they're going to put us in a different room because it's too many people. If you thought this was great and it was a good time, please share a friend of a friend. We're going to get y'all out here. And you all have started your interactive notebooks, so make sure you bring them back because I'll have papers for next week to help us as we do what we're doing, all right? Thank you, guys. This is the first class.
It's that deep. It's that deep.